What's up, world? We're back with Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. We started the last video off with the beginning of the strange interview where Napoleon Hill confronts the devil and his confession begins. This one gets right into it. This next chapter here. It's called Drifting with the Devil. He begins with his tricks. Here we go, getting right into it. Napoleon says, "Tell me first about your most clever trick, the one you use to ensnare the greatest number of people. If you force me to give away this secret, it will mean my loss of millions of people now living and still greater numbers of millions as yet unborn. I beg of you, permit me to pass on this one unanswered question." So His Majesty the Devil fears a mere humble earthbound creature. Is that right? It's not right, but it's true. You have no right to rob me of my most necessary tool of trade. For millions of years, I've dominated earthbound creatures through fear and ignorance. Now you come along and would destroy my use of these weapons by forcing me to tell you how I use them? Do you not realize that you will break my grip on every person who heeds this confession you are forcing from me? Have you no mercy? Have you no sense of humor? Have you no sportsmanship? Stop stalling and start confessing. Who are you to ask of mercy of one whom you would destroy if you could? Who are you to talk of sportsmanship and a sense of humor? You, who by your own confession have set up a living hell on earth, where you punish innocent people through their fears and ignorance? As for minding my own business, that's exactly what I'm doing when I'm forcing you to tell me how you control people through their own minds. My business, if it can be called a business, is helping to unlock the doors of the self-made prisons in which men and women are confined because of the fears you have planted in their minds. Okay. My greatest weapon over human beings consists of two secret principles by which I gain control of their minds. I will speak first of the principle of habit, through which I silently enter the minds of people. By operating through this principle, I establish, and I wish I could avoid using this word, the habit of drifting. Drifting. When a person begins to drift on any subject, he's headed straight toward the gates of what you earthbound call hell. Wow. Okay, describe all the ways in which you induce people to drift. Define the word and tell us exactly what you mean by it. I can best define the word drift by saying that people who think for themselves never drift, while those who do little or no thinking for themselves are drifters. A drifter is one who permits himself to be influenced and controlled by circumstances outside of his own mind. He'd rather let me occupy his mind and do the thinking for them than to go through the trouble of thinking for themselves. A drifter is one who accepts whatever life throws in their way without making a protest or putting up a fight. They don't know what they want from life, and they spend all of their time getting just that. A drifter has lots of opinions, but they're not their own. Most of them are supplied by me. A drifter is one who's too lazy mentally to use their own brain. That is the reason I can take control of people's thinking and plant my own ideas in their minds. Okay, I think I understand what a drifter is. Tell me the exact habits of people by which you induce them to drift through life. Start by telling me when and how you first gain control of a person's mind. My control over the mind of a human being is often obtained while the person is young. Sometimes I lay the foundation for my control of a mind before the owner of it is even born, by manipulating the minds of that person's parents. Sometimes I go further back than that and prepare people for my control through what you earthbound call physical heredity. You see, therefore, I have two approaches to the mind of a person. Yes, go on and describe these two doors by which you enter and control the minds of human beings. Well, as I've stated, I help to bring people into your world with weak brains before birth as many as possible of the weaknesses of their ancestors. You call this principle physical heredity. After people are born, I make use of what you earthbound call environment as a means of controlling them. This is where the principle of habit enters. The mind is nothing more than the sum total of one's habits. One by one, I enter the mind and establish habits. Those habits lead finally to my absolute domination of the mind. Wow. Okay, tell me of the most common habits by which you control the minds of people. That's one of my cleverest tricks. I enter the minds of people through thoughts which they believe to be their own. Those most useful to me are fear, superstition, avarice, greed, lust, revenge, anger, vanity, and plain laziness. Through one or more of these, I can enter any mind at any age, but I get my best results when I take charge of a mind while it's young, before its owner has learned how to close any of these 9 doors. Then I can set up habits which keeps the doors ajar forever. Aha! All right, I'm catching on to your methods. Now let us go back to the habit of drifting. Tell us all about the habit, since you say it is your cleverest trick in controlling the minds of people. Okay, as I said, I start people drifting during their youth. I induce them to drift through school without knowing what occupation they wish to follow in life. Here's where I catch the majority of people. Habits are related. Drift in one direction, and soon you'll be drifting in all directions. I also use environmental habits to give me a definite grip on my victims. I see. You make it your business to train children in the habit of drifting by inducing them to go through school without aim or purpose. Now tell me some of your other tricks with which you cause people to become drifters. Well, my second best trick is developing the habit of drifting is one that I put into operation with the aid of parents and public school teachers and religious instructors. Ooh, this is where it gets deep. This might hurt for anybody who watches this. I warn you not to force me to mention this trick. Do not disclose this trick, because if you do so, you will be hated by my coworkers who helped me use this trick. If you publish this confession in book form, your book will be barred from the public schools. It'll be blacklisted by most of the religious teachers. It will be hidden from children by many parents. The newspapers will not dare to give reviews of your book. Millions of people will hate you for writing this book. In fact, no one will like you or your book except those who think. And you know how very few are of this sort. My advice to you is to let me skip this description of my second best trick. Wow. Millions of people will hate you for writing this book because they are actually co-workers of the devil through their own ignorance and laziness, mental laziness. That's amazing, and that's part of the reason why this book was withheld from being published for 70 years. This book was written in 1938 and wasn't released until 2011. Wow. Wow. Continuing. Okay, so for my own good, you wish to withhold the description of your second best trick. No one will like my book except those who think, eh? Very well. Go ahead and answer. I love how Napoleon does this. Stays to the point. You'll regret this, Mr. Earthbound, but the joke is on you. By this mistake of yours, you will divert attention from me to yourself. My coworkers, of whom there are millions, will forget about me and hate you for uncovering my tricks. Isn't that how the world works sometimes, huh? Never mind about me. Tell me all about this second best trick of yours. My second best trick isn't second at all. It's first. It's first because without it, I could never gain control of the minds of the youth. Parents, school teachers, religious instructors, and many other adults unknowingly serve my purpose by helping me to destroy in children the habit of thinking for themselves. How simple is that? Destroying the habit of thinking for themselves. And they're unknowingly doing this because they don't understand the power that it has. They go about their work in various ways, never suspecting what they're doing to the minds of children or the real cause of the children's mistakes. I can hardly believe you, Your Majesty. I've always believed that children's best friends were those closest to them, their parents, their school teachers, and their religious instructors. Where would children go for dependable guidance if not those who have charge of them? Well, that's where my cleverness comes in. There is the exact explanation of how I control 98% of the people of the world. I take possession of people during their youth, before they come into possession of their own minds, by using those who are in charge of them. I especially need the help of those who give children their religious instruction, because it's here that I break down independent thought and I start people on the habit of drifting. By confusing their minds with unprovable ideas concerning a world of which they know nothing. It's here that I plant in the minds of children the greatest of all fears, the fear of hell. Isn't that true? I went through it. Catholic, Sunday school, catechism. Confusing my mind with unprovable ideas. And as soon as you question the ladies or whoever it was in your Sunday school, they don't want to hear, they don't want questions because they don't know the answers. I experienced that myself. I know others who have experienced that too. That is right on point. And of course, they plant in our minds the fear of hell. And if you're bad, if you don't listen to what we're telling you, if you don't do what we say to do, and if you don't live how we tell you to live, you're going to go to hell for eternity. Burning in a lake of fire. How terrible is that for a child to think of? Wow. All right, onward. I understand it's easy for you to frighten children with threats of hell, but how do you continue to make them fear you and your hell after they grow up and learn to think for themselves? Children grow up, but they don't always learn to think for themselves. Once I capture the mind of a child through fear, I weaken that child's ability to reason and to think for themselves. And that weakness goes with the child all through life. Is that not taking unfair advantage of a human being by contaminating their mind before they come into full possession of it? Look, everything is fair that I can use to further my ends. I have no foolish limitations of right and wrong. Might is right with me. I use every known human weakness to gain and keep control of the human mind. Okay, I understand your devilish nature. Now let us get back to further discussion of your methods of inducing people to drift to hell here on earth. From your confession, I see that you take charge of children while their minds are young and pliable. Tell me more of how you use parents, teachers, religious leaders to ensnare people into drifting. One of my favorite tricks is to coordinate the efforts of parents and religious instructors so they work together in helping me destroy the children's power to think for themselves. I use many religious instructors to undermine the courage and power of independent thought of children by teaching them to fear me. But I use parents to aid the religious leaders in this great work of mine. How do parents help religious leaders destroy their children's power to think for themselves? I never heard of such a monstrosity. I accomplish this through a very clever trick. I cause the parents to teach their children to believe as the parents do in connection with religion, politics, marriage, and other important subjects. In this way, as you can see, when I can control the mind of a person, I can easily perpetuate the control by causing that person to help me fasten it upon the mind of their offspring. Makes perfect sense, right? All of us screw up like that. You know, most of us, right? Your parents taught you things about life, and because they taught you them, and they were our leaders, they were our gods, if you will. They were our rulers of our world as little children. So what they thought, we clung on to as well, and we thought that. So if they're teaching us the fear of hell, the fear of a devil, Of course, we're going to pick that up. Makes perfect sense. Okay. In what other ways do you use parents to convert children into drifters? I cause children to become drifters by following the example of their parents, most of whom I've already taken over and bound eternally to my cause. In some parts of the world, I gain mastery over their children's minds and subdue their willpower in exactly the same way that men break and subdue animals of lower intelligence. It makes no difference to me how a child's will is subdued, as long as it fears something. I will enter its mind through that fear and limit the child's power to think independently. Seems that you'll go out of your way to keep people from thinking. Yes, accurate thought is death to me. I cannot exist in the minds of those who think accurately. I do not mind people thinking as long as they think in terms of fear, discouragement, hopelessness, and destructiveness. But when they begin to think in terms of faith, courage, hope, and definiteness of purpose, they immediately become allies of my opposition and are therefore lost to me. Wow. I'm beginning to understand how you gain control of the minds of children through the help of their parents and religious instructors. But I don't see how the school teachers help you in this damnable work. School teachers help me gain control of the minds of children, not so much by what they teach the children, but more so because what they don't teach them. The entire public school system is so administered that it helps my cause by teaching children almost everything except how to use their own minds. Except how to think independently. I live in fear that someday some courageous person will reverse this present system of school teaching and deal my cause a death blow by allowing the students to become the instructors. By using those who now serve as teachers only as guides to help the children establish ways and means of developing their own minds from within. When that time comes, the school teachers will no longer belong to my staff. I was under the impression that the purpose of all schooling was to help children think. Well, that may be the purpose, but the system in most of the schools of the world does not carry out that purpose. School children are taught not to develop and use their own minds, but to adopt and use the thoughts of others. This sort of schooling destroys the capacity for independent thought, except in a few rare cases where the children rely so definitely upon their own willpower that they refuse to allow others to do their thinking. Accurate thought is the business of my opposition, not mine. What relationship, if any, has your opposition with the homes, churches, and the schools? Your reply to this question should be interesting. Here's where I make use of some of my more clever tricks. I cause it to appear that everything is done by the parents, the school teachers, and the religious instructors I cause it to appear that everything done by the parents, school teachers, and religious instructors is being done by my opposition. Well, this diverts attention from me while I manipulate the minds of youth. When religious instructors try to teach children the virtues of my opposition, they generally do so by frightening them with my name. And that's all I ask. Excuse me. I kindle the flame of fear into proportions which destroy the child's power to think accurately. In the public schools, the teacher furthers my cause by keeping the children so busy cramming non-essential information into their minds that they have no opportunity to think accurately or to analyze correctly the things their instructors teach them. Boy, how true is that? How many of us went through school? They didn't really know what they were teaching us. We couldn't prove if it was true. Tried to take their word for it. And then you grow up a little bit and you realize that the people that were teaching you didn't know any better than you do now. You know, and they were your age teaching you. You know, you just cramming us with non-essential information. Repeat, memorize. Don't think for yourself. Here's the answers. Do you claim for your cause all those who are bound by the habit of drifting? No. Drifting is only one of my tricks through which I take over the power of independent thought. Before a drifter becomes my permanent property, I must lead them on and ensnare them with another trick. I'll tell you about this other trick after I finish describing my methods of converting people into drifters. Okay, so do you mean to tell me you have a method by which you cause people to drift so far away from self determination that they can never save themselves? Yes, a definite method. And it's so effective, it never fails. Do I understand you to claim your method is so powerful, your opposition cannot reclaim those whom you have permanently ensnared through drifting? I claim just that. Do you think I would control so many people if my opposition could prevent me? Nothing can stop me from controlling people except people themselves. Nothing can stop me except the power of accurate thought. People who think accurately do not drift on any subject. They recognize the power of their own minds, and moreover, they take over that power and yield to it no person or influence. Okay. This is a big answer here coming up. Go ahead and tell me more of the methods by which you cause people to drift to hell with you. Dang, got a little itch. Sorry. Okay, I cause people to drift on every subject through which I can control independent thought and action. Take the subject of health, for example. I cause most people to eat too much food and the wrong sort of food. Well, this leads to indigestion and destroys the power of accurate thought. If the public schools and churches taught children more about proper eating, they would do my cause irreparable damage. Marriage. I cause men and women to drift into marriage without a plan or purpose designed to convert their relationship into harmony. Here's one of my most effective methods of converting people into the habit of drifting. I cause married people to bicker and nag one another over money matters. I cause them to quarrel over the bringing up of their children. I engage them in unpleasant controversies over their intimate relationships and disagreements over friends and social activities. I keep them so busy finding fault in one another that they never have time to do anything else long enough to break that habit of drifting. We all know couples like that. Occupation. I teach people to become drifters by causing them to drift out of school into the first job they can find with no definite aim or purpose except to make a living. Through this trick, I keep millions of people in fear of poverty all their lives. Through this fear, I lead them slowly but surely onward until they reach the point beyond which no individual has ever broken the drifting habit. Savings. I cause people to spend freely and to save sparingly, or not at all. And then I take complete control of them through their fear of poverty. We all know people like that. Environment. I cause people to drift into inharmonious and unpleasant environments in the home, in their places of occupation, in their relationships with relatives and acquaintances, and then to remain there until I claim them through the habit of drifting. Dominating thoughts. I cause people to drift into the habit of thinking negative thoughts. This leads to negative acts and involves people in controversies and fills their mind with fears, thus paving the way for me to enter and control their minds. When I move in, I do so by appealing to people through negative thoughts, which they believe to be their own. I plant the seeds of negative thoughts in the mind of people through the pulpits, the newspapers, the moving pictures, the radio, and all other popular methods of appeal to the mind. I cause people to allow me to do their thinking for them because they are too lazy and too indifferent to think for themselves. We all know people like that. Okay, I conclude from what you say that drifting and procrastination are the same. Is that true? Yes, that's correct. Any habit which causes one to procrastinate, which is to put off reaching a definite decision, leads to the habit of drifting. That's true too. I've done that myself. You put something off and then, you start like second guessing it. And I mean, a lot like this right here. Like, dude, just upload a video and put it out there. It doesn't have to be perfect. I've wasted a lot of time just wanting things to be perfect, wanting to come across as perfect. And it's impossible. And so you put it off, and then you start second guessing, and then you just put it off, and then you don't do it. You do something else, and here we are years later. Continuing, is man the only creature who drifts? Yes. All other creatures move in response to definite laws of nature. Man alone defies nature's laws and drifts when he wills. Everything outside the minds of men, is controlled by my opposition, by laws so definite that drifting is impossible. I control the minds of people solely because of their habit of drifting, which is only another way of saying that I control the minds of them because they neglect or refuse to control and use their own minds. Okay, this is getting pretty deep stuff for a mere human being. Let's get back to the discussion of something less abstract. Please tell me how this drifting habit affects people in the everyday walks of life, and tell me in terms of the average person can understand. The devil says, I'd prefer to keep this interview up among the stars. After reading this book numerous times, I've come to really appreciate how, in the moment, Napoleon Hill realizes that some of these answers are getting too abstract. Like, okay, I can make some sense of that, but I can't really wrap my head around that. I don't fully understand that. So let's bring it back down to where I can understand. That's mature and that's wise. And it really helps get to the point of it, Because the devil's tricky. He'll lead you off somewhere else. So that's a perfect example. This stuff's getting pretty deep for a mere human being. Let's kid it back to something less abstract. And that's very good. That's concise. So he says, yeah, I'd prefer to keep this interview up among the stars. Yeah, no doubt you would. That'd save you from being exposed. But let us come back down to earth. Tell me now what drifting is doing to us as a nation here in the United States. Frankly, I may as well tell you that I hate the United States as only the devil can hate. Wow. That is interesting. What's the cause of this hatred? The cause was born on July 4th, 1776, when 56 men signed a document which destroyed my chances of controlling the nation. You know that document as the Declaration of Independence. Had it not been for the influence of that damnable document, I would now have a dictator running the country, and I would stop this right to free speech and independent thought that is threatening my rule on earth. Wow. Am I to understand from what you say that nations controlled by self-appointed dictators belong to your camp? There are no self-appointed dictators. I appoint them all. And moreover, I manipulate them and direct them in their work. Nations run by my dictators know what they want and they take it. By force. Look what I've done through Mussolini in Italy. Look what I'm doing through Hitler in Germany. Remember, this book was written in 1938. Look what I am doing through Hitler in Germany. Look what I'm doing through Stalin in Russia. My dictators run those nations for me because the people have been subdued through the habit of drifting. But my dictators do no drifting. That is why they rule for me the millions of people under their control. So what would happen if Mussolini, Stalin, and Hitler turned traitors and disavow you in your rule? That will not happen because I have them too well bribed. I'm paying each of them with the sop of their own vanity, by making them believe they're doing and acting on their own account. That's a trick of mine. Okay, let's come back to the United States and learn something of what you're doing to convert people to the habit of drifting. Right now, I'm paving the way for a dictatorship by sowing the seeds of fear and uncertainty in the minds of the people. Through whom are you carrying on your work? Mainly through the president. I am destroying his influence with the people by causing him to drift on the question of a working agreement between employers and their employees. If I can induce him to drift for another year, he will be so thoroughly discredited, I can hand over the country to a dictator. If the president continues to drift, I will paralyze personal freedom in the United States, just as I destroyed it in Spain, Italy, Germany, and England. Okay, so this book was written in 2011. Barack Obama was the president. Now, if you've gone down any rabbit holes, you're probably hit to, the theories about him not even being a United States citizen, born citizen, Barack Obama not even being his real name. All of these theories, right? So this is what was happening at this time. And he says he's trying to work mainly through the president. Okay, so even fast forward closer to our times, you know, it's well known they were working with the Clintons, the Bidens. You know, some people were saying, you know, Joe was so far out there that a lot of people thought Obama was pulling the strings behind the scenes for that whole, you know, kind of thing. So this adds up here. And then the whole thing about Trump, like some, you know, people on the left would think Trump is this crazy dictator now. But there's other peoples and another theory out there that says that Trump is kind of the, you know, standing up for the people, the warrior, the you know, rich business billionaire who doesn't need the help of the governmental corporate world, you know, financially to kind of fight the battle. So it is interesting. We're kind of in this time where we are, you could see what the devil was saying, and we can see that it still has potential. But maybe today there is hope, more hope than there was in the last 10 years or since this book came out in 2011. Shit, almost 14 years ago. I don't know what month this came out, but whatever. All right, onward. What you say leads me to the conclusion that drifting is a weakness which inevitably ends in failure, whether among individuals or nations. Is that your claim? Drifting is the most common cause of failure in every walk of life. I can control anyone whom I can induce to form the habit of drifting on any subject. The reason for this is twofold. First, the drifter is just as much putty in my hands, to be molded into whatever pattern I choose, because drifting destroys the power of individual initiative. Second, the drifter cannot get help from my opposition, because the opposition is not attracted to anything so soft and useless. Isn't that interesting? We've been taught to beg, right? Through prayer, to beg to God. But the devil says, God is not attracted to anything so soft and useless. Is that why a few people are wealthy while the majority of people are poor? That's exactly the reason. Poverty, like physical illness, is a contagious disease. You'll find it always among the drifters, never among those who know what they want and are determined to get just that. It may mean something to you when I call your attention to the fact that the non-drifters, whom I do not control, and those who possess most of the wealth of the world, happen to be the same people. I've always understood that money was the root of all evil, that the poor and the meek would inherit heaven, while the wealthy would pass into your hands. What do you have to say of that claim? Men who know how to get material things of life, or people who know how to get the material things of life, generally know how to keep out of the hands of the devil as well. The ability to acquire things is contagious. Drifters acquire nothing except that which no one else wants. If more people had definite aims and stronger desires for material and spiritual riches, I'd have fewer victims. I'd have to say for myself, I've thought these things, right? I was taught these things with religion, parents, stuff like that. Poor and meek would inherit heaven, while the wealthy and rich and, you know, those people were the bad, were the evil, were the controlling, were the... But the devil himself here is saying that, nah, that's not actually the case. Those people who know how to get the things that they want generally know how to avoid the devil as well. Interesting. Another example of how this book really makes you think about stuff like that. Okay, I assume from what you say that you do not claim fellowship with industrial leaders. Evidently, they are not friends of yours. Friends of mine? I'll tell you what sort of friends of mine they are. They've belted the entire country with good roads, thus bringing into close communion of people of both city and country. They've converted ores into steel, with which they have built the skeletons of great skyscrapers. They've harnessed electrical power and converted it into 1,000 uses, all designed to give man time to think. They've provided, through the use of the automobile, personal transportation to the humblest of citizens, thus giving everyone the freedom of travel. They've provided every home with instantaneous news of what's happening in all parts of the world through the aid of the radio. They've reared libraries in every city, town, hamlet, and have them filled with books giving to all who read a complete outline of the most useful knowledge mankind has gathered from his experiences. They've given the humblest citizen the right to express their own opinion on any subject, anytime, anywhere, without fear of molestation. And they have seen to it that every citizen may help make his own laws, levy his own taxes, and manage his own country through the ballot. These are but some of the things the industrial leaders have done to give every citizen the privilege of becoming a non-drifter. Do you think these men have helped me? Now, some of that is, questionable. How much do we actually make our own laws? How much do we actually levy our own taxes? How much do we actually manage the country through the ballot? Yeah, that's pretty, who knows? But it's funny how he says that. Okay, so who are some of the present-day non-drifters over whom you have no control? I have control over no non-drifter, past or present. I control the weak, not those who think for themselves. Go ahead and describe a typical drifter. Give your description of him, and then go point by point so I can recognize a drifter when I see them. This is interesting, too. This is kind of harsh, but we all know people like this. The first thing you'll notice about a drifter is their total lack of a major purpose in life. They'll be conspicuous by their lack of self-confidence. They'll never accomplish anything requiring thought and effort. They spend all they earn, and more too, if they can get credit. They will be sick or ailing from some real or imaginary cause, and calling to the high heaven if they suffer the least physical pain. They will have little or no imagination. They will lack enthusiasm and initiative to begin anything they're not forced to undertake, and they will plainly express their weakness by taking the line of least resistance whenever they can do so. They'll be ill-tempered and lacking control over their emotions. Their personality will be without magnetism, and it will not attract other people. They will have opinions on everything, but accurate knowledge of nothing. They may be the jack of all trades, but good at none. They will neglect to cooperate with those around them, even those whom they must depend on for food and shelter. They'll make the same mistake over and over again, never profiting by failure. They'll be narrow-minded and intolerant on all subjects, ready to crucify those who may disagree with them. They will expect everything of others, but will be willing to give little or nothing in return. They may begin many things, but they will complete nothing. They'll be loud in their condemnation of the government, but will never tell you definitely how it can be improved. They'll never reach decisions on anything if they can avoid it. And if they're forced to decide, they'll reverse themselves at the first opportunity. They will eat too much and exercise too little. They will take a drink of liquor if someone else will pay for it. They will gamble if they can do it on the cuff. They will criticize others who are succeeding in their chosen calling. In brief, the drifter will work harder to get out of thinking than most others work in earning a good living. They will tell a lie rather than admit their ignorance on a subject. If they work for others, they will criticize them to their backs and flatter them to their faces. Boy, we've all had those coworkers. Okay. You've given me a graphic description of the drifter. Now please describe the non-drifter so that I may recognize him on sight. This is another good one. The first sign of a non-drifter is this. He's always engaged in doing something definite through some well-organized plan which is definite. They have a major goal in life toward which they're always working, and then many minor goals, all of which lead toward their central scheme. The tone of their voice, the quickness of their step, the sparkle in their eyes. The quickness of their decisions clearly mark them as a person who knows exactly what they want and is determined to get it, no matter how long it may take or what price they may pay. If you ask them questions, they'll give you direct answers, and they never fall back on evasions or resort to subterfuge. They extend many favors to others, but accept favors sparingly or not at all. They'll be found up front, whether they're playing a game or fighting a war. If they don't know the answers, they will just say so, frankly. They have good memory. They don't offer alibis. They never blame others for their mistakes, no matter if they deserve the blame. They would be known as a go-getter, but in modern times, a go-giver. You'll find them running the biggest business in town, living on the best street, driving the best automobile, making their presence felt wherever they happen to be. They're an inspiration to all who come into contact with their mind. The major distinguishing feature of the non-drifter is this: they have a mind of their own, and they use it for all purposes. Wow. Okay, so is the non-drifter born with some mental, physical, or spiritual advantage that is not available to the drifter? No. The major difference between the drifter and the non-drifter is something equally available to both. It's so simply the prerogative right of each to use their own mind and to think for themselves. So what brief message would you send to the typical drifter if you wish to cure him of his evil habit? I would admonish him to wake up and give. Give. Give what? Some form of service useful to as many people as possible. So the non-drifter is supposed to give? Yes, if he expects to get, then he must give before he gets. Some people doubt that you exist. I wouldn't worry about that if I were you. Those who are ready to be converted from the habit of drifting will recognize the authenticity of this interview by its soundness of counsel. The others who do not recognize it are not worth the trouble it would take to convert them. Why do you not try to stop me from publishing this confession I'm wringing from you? Because that'd be the surest of all ways to guarantee you'll publish it. I have a better plan. I will urge you to go ahead. Go ahead and publish it. And then I'll sit back and watch you suffer when some of my faithful drifters begin to make things hot for you. I will not need to deny your story. My followers will do all that for me. Watch and see if they don't. Wow. I know that was a bit long. 42 minutes. Sheesh. I'd like to keep these shorter, but to read it in the dialogue and to really get into it and feel what he's saying, the truths that he's explaining to us, it takes some time. So, if you made it this far, thanks for sticking with me. That was Drifting with the Devil, the second part of the strange interview. Thank you, Napoleon Hill. Love it. All right, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Keep on keeping on. Let's keep outwitting the devil. We got this. Peace.